Hello students, welcome to the series on marketing and retail business. Today we are going to study retail management. In this we will cover unit 4 and we are going to study outsourcing, the definition, scope and importance of outsourcing. Now let's study the objective of this study. The basic objective of the study is to focus on the concept of outsourcing and to study the impact and importance of outsourcing. Now let's study the concept of outsourcing. Outsourcing is an arrangement by which one organization provides a service or services for another organization that chooses not to perform them in house. Outsourced processes or function is a non core business activity. Businesses that outsource are growing faster, larger, and more profitable than those that do not. Now, what is the concept of outsourcing? The concept of outsourcing basically relates to take the functions from one's organization and to be carried to the other organization. That is because your home organization cannot perform these activities as the resources are less and it is time consuming. So, a organization which is more specialized and which has more resources, they can perform this function for you. So, outsourcing would give you the benefits of the economies of scale, would give you the benefits of getting your function done in a faster, in a specialized and in a more quality oriented way. So, here most of the activities which we outsource are non-core activities, that is they are peripheral activities like complaint management, call centers, the data integration or the collection of marketing data required to forecast the demand. So, these functions which are not very important for the company's organization in terms to be performed in their home grounds can be outsourced to the other organizations who are more research based and who are more oriented to handle your systems. Now, let us study the outsourcing growth drivers. The basic outsourcing growth drivers are globalization, internet, growing economy and low unemployment rate, technology and deregulation. Now, why outsourcing has become important in modern era? What are the drivers for the growth of outsourcing? The basic driver is globalization. The world has integrated. Some business performed in some economy is better specialized. So, other economies using that basic service through internet. Labor is surplus somewhere and somewhere the labor is short. Where the labor is short, the cost is high. So, most of the economies want to utilize the labor and service which is at lower cost. So, the countries like Asian countries which have massive pool of people, they are talented and they are unemployed. So, most of the economies which are more advanced are using this talent through internet and technology to get the work done, and this is 24-hour services given to the companies because call centers can be managed from any part of the world. The technological integration and upgradation in terms of global internet has helped in sharing and interaction of all type of data and services through all centers. What are the benefits of outsourcing? Let us study outsourcing benefits. It is increased quality and efficiency. It is reduced operating expenses. It is outsourcing of non-core processes which allows businesses to focus on their core competencies. It is reduced exposure to risk and access to outsourcing service providers. Economies of scale and expertise is generally crystallized. So, what is the benefit of outsourcing is when you give services to the other organization is you get the expertise at a lower cost, you get specialized service at a lower cost, you get the benefits of the economies of scale because this organization is looking to many other organizations. So, you get better specialized functions from countries who have a kind of a mastery over these services. The business can now focus on core competencies and outsource the peripheral functions to the other countries and other organizations. Let us study again the outsourcing benefits. It is access to advanced technologies, it is increased flexibilities, it is to avoid costly outlay of capital funds, It is reduced headcount and associated overhead expenses. It is reduced frustrations and expense related to hiring and retaining employees in an exceptionally tight job market. It is reduced time to market for products or services. So, how outsourcing is helping companies? It is because you're getting access to cheap labor, you are able to focus on the specialized functions. Now, you do not have to look into the employee frustration, you do not have to look into the real estate requirements to make seat the employees in your organization, where the rental charges of the properties are also very high. So, you want your employees somewhere in the other part of the world who can work for you and get you better services, and this is you also are able to handle these things in a better way, because the system is synchronized to be coordinated to highly professional agencies in the market who get the work done in a better way. So, this divides you with the frustrations of the employees, the frustrations of the recruitment and the frustrations of hiring properties on rental basis. The cost is saved and the specialized function is available at a cheaper rate from other agencies and other organizations. So, this helps the companies to grow in a faster and a better way. Outsourcing challenges: the contract length, difficulties in getting out of contract, problems in forecasting future needs, problems in reforming an internet IT department after the contract is finished, the competitive edge, the confidentiality and the scope of definition. Now, maybe outsourcing is very popular in market, but still there are challenges that how do we define a contract. If the contract is there, the contract only survives for a period of time. Then after, if that function is finished, how do we reassemble the total department, how do we reassemble the workers, and how do we reallocate the IT resources available in the departments. So, all the companies try to come in collaboration with companies where the length of the contract is very high, and then if it builds a competitive edge in the market of cost and quality, then only you can enter the contract, because when you give the contract, a trust has to be there, because your confidential data is available with the subsidiary company. This data has to be managed in a secretive way as you handle your data in a trusted way. So, these are the problems and the challenges which you need to look before you enter into the contract of outsourcing. Let us study the future trends. Outsourcing is becoming less of a cost saving strategy and more an overall context of business. Outsourcing is approaching commodity status. It is not a kind of a function which is generally not important for companies. The function has become important, though the challenges and the problems are high, but because specialized activities are available in certain parts of the world, and then you have to take help of these agencies and these specialized agencies, because they can look into the markets and they can function in a better way. You get more access to the power of elaborative functions, and you get more access to the kind of the networking which you can do through the outsourcing agencies. So, it is always important that if we try to outsource this function in terms of getting the functions from the market to be done, outsourcing has become a commodity where it is selling very easily in the market. That is the customer availability, the marketing programs, the loyalty programs to be built up. The call centers are handling these things in an easy way. Future trends: companies should look for value based pricing rather than lowest possible price. It is not always advisable to outsource function only on the basis of price. It is important that you create a value for the customer, and the value and the trust has to be created between the company and the subsidiary. And if the connection is that way, in a trusted way, it is always better for markets to manage this trust in a sustainable way. That is, if you have a trusted agency and if the price is more, it is okay, because then you get quality services which are not deteriorated, and where your reputation is also maintained in the market. Multi-sourcing. Multi-sourcing is a combination of professional services where mission critical support is important, remote management becomes important, hosting services become important, and these services are offered to customers in any combination needed. Multi-sourcing is when you try to source functions from two or three agencies who are specialized in their area and then integrate these functions. That is, you try to integrate the call centers related to handling the complaint. Then you also try to integrate with a department who's handling the legal aspects of the matters. Then you are also hiring a kind of a department which is looking into the hosting services, that is they are basically related to get you the internet and the other server services where the governance becomes important. So, if you try to take 2-3 services from various agencies, that can give you a better quality in the market. Now, what are the reasons for outsourcing? One is the traditional role, that is reaction to problem, and the modern role is the you need to design a business strategy. Let's study the traditional role. It is reduction and control of cost. It is to avoid large capital investment cost. It is insufficient resources available. Modern role is it allows company to focus on their core competencies. It is keeping up with cutting edge technology. It is creating value for the organization and its customers. It is building partnerships. Outsourcing is done because you need to save your cost and you don't have the resources to invest in collecting teams of trained people, or you don't have resources as such, the availability of big buildings and layouts, or you don't have local stations in all countries. So, you come in contract with the local call centers and try to give your products to be sold. Now, outsourcing has become a modern way of doing business because you need to design strategy which needs to give value to the customer to build a competitive edge in the market. That is, you need standardized focal centers to connect with the customers from all channels. Maybe you are not important to operate all channels through your specialization, so you can hire these channels, and when you hire these services, they give professional and better access to the customers in the market. Activities to be outsourced. There is a system integration, mainframe data center, maintenance and repair center, e-commerce, data network, voice network, internet and intranet, applications development, and end user support system. So, these are the activities which can be outsourced in the market. These activities are outsourced because when you have people and professionals who are integrated in routine type of work, they can integrate your system to take activities from managing data, from outsourcing data from other call centers, to build the voice networks, to connect the applications, to design the basic softwares, to analyze the forecasting, to track the demand of the customers. This is a routine job which can be done by any marketing outsourcing agency, and then you can focus on product quality and try to change or diversify your product according to the tracking of the preferences of the customers. How to implement outsourcing? First is the program initiation, where opinions and ideas are shared. Program implementation, which is done by transferring the staff, going for a service level agreement, establishing a communication between partners, and establish management procedures. We come into a contract agreement and do a contract fulfillment. So, how do we do outsourcing? Is first is you need to think what is the problem in your organization, how the ideas can be built up to solve this problem, and then you try to outsource this idea. You can basically get into a service level agreement so that the services of this quality are given to the customers. We can collaborate with the call centers who already have a kind of a managed computer center, who already have a managed team of people who can handle computers, and these people are trained to look into the complaints of the customers. So, the contract management can help you to get over the problems of the customers, and you can decentralize this function, and on payment of a certain amount of money, you can get your work done in a professional way. What are the problems with outsourcing? It is loss of control, it is increased cash flow, it is confidentiality and security lost, the selection of supplier is difficult, and you are too dependent on service provider. Now when you outsource, obviously is you lose control over the function, because this function you have given to some other agency. This agency is responsible for giving quality services to the customers. Now the data of the customer which you have given to the agency, he has a control over the data, because the passwords and the interaction and the total communication with the customer is controlled by the agency. So you have lost the control over understanding what are the problems of the customers. So getting into this outsourcing is also difficult, but now most trusted agencies, through framing of good legal contracts, can help you to overcome this problem. Now let's study e-commerce hosting solution. You have the WAN, bandwidth, the IT professionals, hardware and software, and security issues. The most of the outsourcing is done by e-commerce sites, where most of the solutions are available online. The customers can go to the websites, track their orders, find out what is the status of the order, how they are able to get the orders fulfilled, where much of the recording and much of the demonstration of the product is available online. But the total maintenance of the e-commerce website is also done by professional agencies, where the IT professionals are trained to handle all the solutions related to the customers. Database outsourcing. What are the areas related to database outsourcing, and what are the benefits? The areas related are clinical activities, the operational activities, the customer relations and reception centers, the grievance management centers. What are the benefits? It is savings of revenue, it is off-site data storage, it is automated services, and it is free up the server space, standardization and professionalism entering into the areas. So, what is database outsourcing? It is basically related to the clinical operations, to most of the routine activities, the operational activities, the grievance, the customer relations, and the call center activities. So, these are routine activities which generally need to be designed in such a way that a particular form is needed. You fill up that form, and according to that you assign a complaint number to that grievance, and on the basis of the numbers you can handle the total issues with the customers. By this you are able to save your revenues, and these routine functions are handled in a more secured and in a more confidential way. The professional agencies can look up to the deep issues of the customers. So, the benefits of the outsourcing are that the parent company is devoid of all the problems and is left with only strategy management and functions which are core to the company, that is the quality management and the standardization of teams becomes important in organization. Now let's study email outsourcing. This is 24 into 7 web support available. It is spell check, email forwarding, unlimited attachment size, unlimited storage folders, and multiple attachments. When we try to do marketing for events or for functions or for any weddings or for any company program or for any new launch of the product, we basically need to give mails to most of the employees in the organization, to the stakeholders, and to the customers of the organization. So, this is a huge task, and here we have a email outsourcing company who basically would attach n number of folders, n number of brochures, and will give to all the stakeholders, to all the customers, and to all the employees of the company. So, this is a time consuming process which can be outsourced and can be done by some agency, where the company is only just free to give a instruction and do the other core activities. What are the typical services? One is the customer webmail, which is to customize private label webmail interface, wireless WAP access, it is automated user signups, it is integrated ad server, it is customizable to any language in the world, it is programming APIs for front and back end system integration. So, what is custom webmail is basically you try to design a webmail which can be forwarded to many people in a connection which is available to any server and to customers who can access this webmail in any language. That is, You can translate this and put to all the knowledge for customers through ad servers in any country and in any location. What is disadvantage of outsourcing? Companies may not fully understand the actual work that is outsourced. This could affect cost and satisfaction with the end product or service. The companies who outsourced are completely not satisfied, but 91% said they would continue to outsource. Though you are dissatisfied, but you have no choice left, because the world is growing up, the global markets are growing up, the expansions are there, the diverse cultures, the diverse issues, the local problems, the languages have created a lot of problem with the companies. So a company which is US based cannot understand the local language of the Indian market, or they cannot understand the local issues, the festivals, the basic needs of the customers uh, in a kind of a designed way. So these US based companies also have to depend on outsourcing agencies in India who would design the marketing functions, who would look into the festivals, come out with the promotions, and uh, give a kind of a package to the customer where the sales will be high. So we need to understand that because the markets are globally connected and because the markets are expanding, it is not advisable for all companies to do all the functions. Most of the companies, even if they are satisfied or are not satisfied, have little option to escape from this basic outsourcing specialized activity which is available to the market. So companies cannot live without outsourcing. Categories of outsourced IT activities. This is software development, application support and maintenance, infrastructure management services. So what is software development? Software development is specific to each company's need. So you basically have a kind of a software related to manage the applications of your employees. You have softwares for internal communication. You have softwares to understand the customer problems. So all these software development is basically done by companies which are IT based. They are specialized because you are not IT company, you are basically managing a product which may be related to FMCG. So you need specialized services where software companies would look to these aspects of your company. Then is the application support and maintenance. Is once you have developed an application, it has to be maintained in terms of having a server space and in terms of handling the updated trends which are coming in the market. It is also to manage the kind of the services which are required to support the system in the virtual environment. Audit of outsourcing. The objective of an audit of outsourcing is to determine whether risks associated with outsourcing are mitigated, objective of outsourcing are being met, IT strategy has been modified to make best use of outsourcing. Now, when you do the audit of outsourcing, that is whether the outsourcing which you are doing for your organization is basically needed. So, what is the risk associated and what is the benefit you are getting, and what is the IT strategy which your company has employed in order to give you the solution. So, when this audit is done and this is done in a systematic way, would give you a kind of a reason to continue or to change the vendor who is giving you this service, or to retain the vendor who is basically associated with the trust and the kind of the credibility of the company. Risk of outsourcing, that is, it is known as the business risk. Outsourcing undesirable function versus the one that will provide the greatest competitive advantage. What is the cost of outsourcing? Not having defined the goals and the objectives carried over to the service provider. Sometimes you don't understand what functions need to be outsourced, and even if you have outsourced, you need to make the provider understand that what is the mission and the vision of the organization, and according to your strategy, the people in the provider agencies have to work, because if the mission and your vision is diluted, then obviously the wrong message will go to the people and the functions will not be done with that philosophy and that attitude. Now let's study the summary of this lecture. In this lecture we have studied outsourcing, where we have studied the impact and its basic advantage on the organization. Outsourcing is important for organizations because the non-core activities can be done by outside agencies. But the risk associated with the outsourcing is that you lose the control over the functions and the confidentiality of the data is lost. But if proper contracts are managed and if proper supervision is done, companies can take advantage of outsourcing. Outsourcing is the best solution to survive in the modern global world of expansion because many cultures and many countries have connected through internet and technology. I hope the students must have understood the importance and the risk of outsourcing for any organization. Thank you, students.